The smooth, curved hull of the GFS-compliant slid into the Sol system, like a knife through silk, its organic Federation design a stark contrast against the blocky human orbital stations that dotted near Earth space. Smaller inspection pods detached from its underbelly, scattering like spores toward the various human installations. Inside the main vessel, High Inspector Vraxis of the Zenthari Dominion straightened his ceremonial sash with two of his forearms while the other two manipulated the holographic display before him. His chitinous faceplates twitched in disapproval as the scans populated with human engineering schematics. Human administration, Vraxis announced, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 standardized regulations. Prepare for full compliance assessment. Your technology, military protocols, and resource allocation will be evaluated under Galactic Standard Code HFY. The response crackled over the comms almost immediately, laced with an infuriatingly casual tone. Copy that. Compliance. Welcome to the neighborhood. Commander Lisa Hayes of the USN Watchtower leaned back in her chair, her boots propped up on the edge of the command console. Around her, the orbital station hummed with activity, technicians shouting over the din of machinery, screens flickering with raw data streams, and the ever-present scent of recycled air and coffee. Vraxis' mandibles tightened. Your acknowledgement is noted, Commander. However, Galactic Federation protocol requires formal verification of readiness before. Yeah, we got the memo, Hayes interrupted, waving a hand. Look, we're happy to have you. Just don't expect us to roll out the red carpet. We've got work to do. A low hiss escaped the Vorak engineer standing beside Vraxis, his segmented limbs twitching in agitation. Disrespectful, the engineer muttered in their native tongue. They treat this as a formality, not an honor. Vraxis silenced him with a glance before turning back to the display. Commander Hayes, we will begin with an inspection of your primary shipyard. Prepare your personnel for immediate boarding. Hayes smirked. Personnel are always prepared, Inspector. Just don't be surprised if they don't stop working to salute. The feed cut, leaving Vraxis to stew in the quiet disapproval of his team. The Zenthari had spent centuries perfecting the art of bureaucratic precision, and this chaos was an affront to the very foundation of galactic order. The inspection pod docked with the human shipyard, its seamless Federation tech locking into place with a quiet hum. The boarding ramp lowered, revealing a scene that made Vraxis' exoskeleton crawl. Human engineers in grease, stained coveralls clambered over the skeletal frame of the USN Defiance, its hull still open in places, wires and conduits exposed to the vacuum of space. They worked without environmental suits, relying instead on localized magnetic boots and the occasional tether. One of the inspectors, a lithe Zephyrian whose crystalline skin shimmered under the station lights, recoiled. This is a violation of basic safety protocols. Exposed systems, unshielded radiation zones. Chief Engineer Jake Morrison, his face smeared with hydraulic fluid, looked up from the thruster assembly he was welding. Hey, you get used to it, he said, flipping his visor up. Besides, suits slow you down when you're in a pinch. Vraxis stepped forward, his scanner already whirring as it logged the first of what would undoubtedly be many infractions. Human vessels lack proper neural integration, he declared. Manual controls present unacceptable risk. Morrison snorted, slapping a nearby panel with his gloved hand. The Defiance's engines roared to life, the vibrations rattling through the deck plates. Unacceptable risk, huh? Tell that to my girl here. She purrs like a kitten when you treat her right. The Vorak engineer's antennae twitched in disbelief. You still use handles. Do you not fear system lag? Morrison grinned, wiping his hands on his already filthy overalls. We fear reliance more. Vraxis scanner beeped again, this time highlighting the lack of centralized AI coordination. This is unacceptable. Galactic Standard Code HFY mandates. Yeah, mandates this, protocols that. Morrison interrupted, rolling his eyes. Look, Inspector, we don't build our ships to meet your standards. We build them to win. The statement hung in the air, heavy with implication. Varaxis' team exchanged uneasy glances. This was not how inspections were supposed to go. There was supposed to be deference, compliance, order. But as Varaxis watched the humans work, laughing, shouting, moving with a chaotic efficiency that somehow worked, he felt the first flicker of doubt. Perhaps this inspection would not be as straightforward as he had assumed. The inspection pods drifted through the skeletal framework of the USN Defiance, their smooth, organic surfaces, a stark contrast to the angular human warship. High Inspector Varaxis extended one of his 4 arms, running a scanner over an exposed wiring conduit. The device emitted a series of rapid, disapproving chirps. Unacceptable, Varaxis muttered, his voice a clipped, nasal rasp. These systems lack even basic neural integration, manual interfaces. Primitive. Beside him, the Vorak engineer, Klix, hissed through his segmented mandibles. His compound eyes flickered with disdain as he tapped a claw against a control panel. You still use handles, Klix sneered. Do you not fear system lag? A single delayed input could doom your vessel in combat. Chief Engineer Jake Morrison leaned against a bulkhead, his grease, streaked coveralls a mess of patches and scorch marks. He smirked, folding his arms. We fear reliance more. With a practiced motion, he slapped the panel Klix had just criticized. The Defiant shuddered, then roared to life, engines thrumming with a deep, resonant growl. Varaxis' scanner screeched in protest. This is a violation of Galactic Standard Code FE. Subsection D-FE. All critical systems must be neural, linked to prevent operator error. Morrison chuckled, wiping his hands on a rag. Operator error. Nah, what you call error, we call thinking outside the box. Your fancy neural nets lock you into one way of doing things. Ours. He tapped his temple. We improvise. Klix's antennae twitched. Your arrogance will get you killed. The Federation has spent centuries refining these protocols for a reason. Yeah, and how's that working out for you? Morrison shot back. He jerked a thumb toward the ship's bridge. Last time I checked, your perfect systems take 3 seconds to reroute power during a crisis hours. He flipped a manual switch. The lights dimmed, then flared brighter as the Defiance's reactors surged. Instant. Varaxis' pale skin flushed a deeper shade of violet. This is not a matter of speed. Human, it is about control. Your kind treats starships like tools. Morrison grinned. Damn right we do, and you know what happens when a tool breaks. He reached into a nearby toolkit and pulled out a wrench. You fix it. No waiting for some AI to diagnose the problem. No begging the network for permission to reroute. Just good old-fashioned know-how. Klix recoiled as Morrison brandished the wrench. You are barbaric. Funny, we call it self-sufficient. The inspection team moved deeper into the ship, their scanners buzzing at every junction. Varaxis paused at a bank of analog dials, his upper pair of arms crossing in disapproval. These readouts are not even digitized. How do you monitor system stability? Morrison shrugged. We look at M. That is not precise. Neither is war. Morrison's grin faded, his voice dropping to something harder. You ever seen a neural net fry during an ion storm? Watched your ship go dead because some algorithm choked on bad data? We have. So we built our ships to work without all that. Varaxis opened his mouth to retort, but a sudden alarm cut him off. Klix's scanner blared a warning. High Inspector, the human reactor. It's operating at FE of rated capacity. Morrison didn't even glance at the dials. Yeah, we do that sometimes. You what? Varaxis' voice cracked. That is insane. The containment protocols are more like guidelines. Morrison finished. He patted the reactor housing fondly. Old Bessie here can take it. We push her hard when we need to. Click's mandibles quivered. This is a violation of every safety regulation in the Galactic Code. Morrison rolled his eyes. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Varaxis' scanner spat out a fresh report. He stared at it, his 4 hands trembling. Your crew manually overrides safety limits. Your systems lack fail-safes. Your entire ship is a death trap by Federation standards. Morrison leaned in, his voice a low, confident rumble. And yet, here we are, still flying, still fighting, still winning. The Vorak engineer backed away, his exoskeleton clicking in agitation. You are mad. Nah, Morrison said, turning back to his work. We're just human. Varaxis' scanner beeped again, logging another violation. He didn't even bother reading it. He already knew what it would say. Human systems, non-compliant. Human ingenuity, unmatched. The inspection team's shuttle descended toward the Mars refinery complex, its smooth Federation hull, looking absurdly pristine against the rust-colored industrial sprawl. Varaxis pressed his 4 hands against the viewport, his vertical pupils dilating at the sight of human workers moving through the radioactive zones without full containment suits. Unbelievable, he muttered. They're not even wearing proper shielding. Beside him, the Vorak engineer tapped his scanner with a clawed digit. Radiation levels at Fey of lethal dose for most species. Their suits are patched together. The shuttle docked with a hiss, the airlock cycling to reveal a human foreman waiting for them. Duke Rust Tanner stood with his arms crossed, his exosuit streaked with grease, and what looked like burn marks. He grinned as the aliens hesitated at the threshold. Y'all coming in, or just gonna hover there like my ex-wife at a bar? Varaxis stepped forward, his posture rigid. This facility is in violation of Galactic Standard Code. Fei, subsection Fei. Worker safety protocols are non-existent. Russ snorted, jerking a thumb over his shoulder. Tell that to the boys in Sector C. They've been working the smelters for 10 years straight, still got all their fingers. The Vorak engineer's frills flared in alarm. You allow organic workers near molten ore without fail-safes. Rust shrugged. We got eyes, don't we? He turned and led them deeper into the refinery, the heat rising with every step. The humans here moved with practiced ease, dodging sparks and venting pipes like it was second nature. A welder up above cursed as his torch flared, yanking his arm back just before a gout of flame licked past his face. Varaxis' secondary arms twitched. That worker nearly lost a limb. Yeah, but he didn't, Rust said, unfazed. That's the 3rd time this week he's getting better. The inspection team exchanged glances. The Zephyrian medic, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with distress, pointed to a group of humans hauling irradiated plating. Your species has radiation-resistant biology. Rust laughed. Nope, just stubborn. He slapped one of the workers on the back. Hey Jenkins, how many rads you clocked today? Jenkins, a grizzled man with a scar across his nose, checked his wrist monitor. About Fey Sieverts. Not my worst Tuesday. The Zephyrian's glow flickered in horror. That would kill a Zephyrian in minutes. Jenkins grinned, revealing a missing tooth. Yeah, well, I got a poker game tonight. Ain't dying till I win my money back. Varaxis' datapad chimed as another violation logged itself. This is barbaric. You have no automated systems, no proper shielding, no respect for biological limits. Rust scratched his chin, leaving a smudge of grime. Automated systems break, shielding slows you down and limits. He smirked. We move 'em. A klaxon blared, and the ground trembled. One of the refinery's primary conduits ruptured, spewing superheated gas. The alien inspectors recoiled, but the humans barely flinched. Rust grabbed a wrench off the wall and tossed it to a nearby worker. Valve Fey B's acting up again. Give it the usual persuasion. The worker caught the wrench, jogged over to a shuddering pipe, and slammed the tool against a rusted bolt. The conduit hissed, then stabilized. Vraxis' voice was tight. "You hit critical infrastructure to fix it?" Rust shrugged. "Works, don't it?" The Vorak engineer's claws flexed in agitation. "This entire facility should be shut down." Rust's grin faded. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over the smaller alien. "Listen here, Bug. This refinery feeds half the colonies in the belt. You want to shut us down? Try it." The air between them crackled. Then from somewhere in the facility, a human voice bellowed. "Rust, we got a meltdown in Sector Phi?" Rust sighed, rolling his shoulders. "Duty calls." He turned to leave, then paused, glancing back at the inspectors. "You're coming, or you just gonna stand there and tisk at us while we work?" Vraxis hesitated, then followed. If nothing else, he needed to document the insanity. The deeper they went, the worse it got. Human crews were elbow-deep in malfunctioning machinery, rerouting power lines while they were still live. One technician cursed as a spark bit his hand, then kept working. The Zephyrian medic finally snapped. "You don't even have pain inhibitors." The technician blinked. "Why, it's just a burn." Vraxis' datapad beeped again. Another violation, and another, and another. By the time they reached Sector Phi, the inspectors were pale, or the alien equivalent. A massive smelter was overheating, its containment field flickering. Human crews were already swarming it, shouting coordinates and adjustments. Rust grabbed a comm unit. "Jenkins, kick the secondary coolant." "Secondary's fried, boss." "Then kick it harder." Jenkins grinned, sprinted to a control panel, and slammed his fist into it. The smelter hissed as emergency coolant flooded the system. The containment field stabilized. Vraxis' voice was hollow. You punched a reactor into submission." Rust wiped sweat from his brow. "Yep." The Vorak engineer looked ready to faint. "This violates every safety protocol in the galaxy." Rust laughed, clapping the alien on the shoulder, nearly knocking him over. "That's the point, friend. We ain't here to follow rules." He gestured at the humming refinery around them. "We're here to get shit done." Vraxis stared at the datapad. The list of violations was pages long, and yet the refinery was still running. The GFS compliance drifted near Jupiter's orbital zone, its smooth, organic hull reflecting the gas giant's swirling storms. High Inspector Vraxis stood rigid in the command pod, his forearms crossed in disapproval as he reviewed the latest list of human violations. The smaller inspection pods had returned with reports of reckless manual systems and unshielded reactor cores, each finding making his exoskeletal plates vibrate with irritation. "These humans are begging for catastrophe," he muttered to his Vorak assistant. Before the engineer could respond, the compliance's threat alarms shrieked to life. The holographic display flickered, revealing a swarm of jagged vessels emerging from Jupiter's radiation shadow. Black Market Crick's collective raiders, their hulls studded with stolen plasma cannons. Pirates. The Vorak hissed, his frills flaring. "They must have tracked our energy signature." Varaxis's upper pair of arms activated the comm. "Human vessels. This is High Inspector Varaxis. We are under attack. You will comply with Galactic Defense Protocol Phi and Static." The human orbital stations had gone dark. Not just silent, powered down. Even the USN Defiance, the blocky human cruiser docked nearby, showed no energy readings. The Crick's warlord's face filled the view screen, his chitinous mandibles spread in a predatory grin. "Galactic fools, you brought inspectors to a fight." His cruiser's weapons glowed as they charged. "We'll take your ship and your regulations." Plasma bolts streaked toward the compliance. Vraxis braced for impact. Then the Defiance moved, not with the smooth, AI-calibrated precision of Federation tech, but in a series of jerking bursts, her thrusters firing in staggered sequence. Manual burns, human burns. The cruiser slid between the Compliance and the plasma volley, her armor blackening as she took the hit. Inside the Defiance's bridge, Captain Ryan Blake didn't flinch as the deck shuddered. "Morrison, where is my power?" Chief Engineer Jake Morrison was already elbow, deep in an open panel, his hands moving faster than the Zentari's scanners could track. "Routing around the port burn, Cap. Guns hot in 3, 2, Blake corrected, slamming his palm on a physical override. The Defiance's railguns whined to life without a single system confirmation. Beep. Out in the void, the Krix warlord's grin faltered. Why aren't they lagging? His own ship's AI hesitated, waiting for threat. Assessment protocols to complete. The Defiance didn't wait. Her railguns fired. A Krix fighter exploded before its shields could activate. Another veered too late. Human gunners had eyeballed the lead. "Impossible," the warlord snarled. "Their systems aren't even networked." On the Compliance, Vraxis watched in stunned silence as the human ship weaved through the pirate swarm. Her crew shouting coordinates to each other, instead of waiting for machine calculations. A Krix cruiser lined up a kill shot, only for the Defiance to cut thrusters mid-turn, drifting just outside the plasma cannon's firing arc. "Manual evasion," the Vorak engineer whispered. "That is suicide." But the Defiance wasn't done. Blake's voice crackled over the Compliance's comm. "Hey, Inspector, you said our lack of neural integration was a violation." The Defiance rotated her hull, presenting her armored belly to a Krix destroyer. "Watch this." The human cruiser rammed the destroyer at full thrust. Metal screamed, atmosphere vented in frozen plumes. And as the Krix ship reeled, the Defiance's Marines, already suited up, boarded through the breach before the pirates could seal it. Varaxis's lower arms gripped the command console. Every galactic tactical doctrine screamed that this shouldn't work. Ships weren't meant to operate without AI synchronization. Crews weren't supposed to make decisions faster than machines. Yet the Defiance was winning. Morrison's voice, breathless with exertion, came through the comm. "Cap, we've got a problem. The Krix flagship's charging its—" "I see it," Blake interrupted. The Krix warlord's cruiser had powered up its spinal plasma lance, a weapon designed to pierce capital ships in one shot. The Defiance was dead in its sights. Vraxis activated the comm. "Human vessel, you must retreat. That weapon will—" "Relax," Blake said. Then the Defiance did something no Federation ship could. She shut down every system, every emitter, even the life support backups. To the Krix targeting AI, the human cruiser ceased to exist. The plasma lance fired and missed, its automated systems unable to track a target that had willingly gone dark. 3 seconds later, the Defiance's engines roared back to life, her crew having manually rebooted the reactors. The Krix warlord's final transmission was a snarl of disbelief. "What are you?" Blake's response was simple. "Human." The Defiance's railguns fired again. The Krix flagship exploded. Silence filled the Compliance's command pod. The Vorak engineer stared at the scanners, his frills limp with shock. They outthought their own systems. Vraxis slowly unclenched his gripping arms. His exoskeletal plates no longer vibrated with irritation. Now they hummed with something else. Dread and something dangerously close to respect. The Krix warlord's flagship shuddered as another volley of human railgun fire punched through its forward shields. On the Compliance's observation deck, High Inspector Varaxis watched in growing horror as the supposedly outdated human vessels weaved through plasma fire with impossible precision. His 4 hands trembled against the viewing glass. "Impossible," whispered the Vorak engineer beside him. "Their reaction times, they shouldn't be able to—" A human corvette, the USN Bastion, spun sideways as 3 Krix torpedoes streaked toward it. At the last possible second, its thrusters flared in a sequence no AI could calculate, The torpedoes passed harmlessly through the space where its engines had been. Inside the Defiance's bridge, Captain Ryan Blake gripped his command chair as another impact rocked the ship. Warning lights flashed across panels that should have been dead. Every primary system had been knocked offline 5 minutes into the battle. "Port thrusters at Faye," shouted Ensign Cho from the manual navigation station, her hands flying across physical toggles. "They're lining up another—" "I see them," Blake growled. "Morrison, I need power to starboard guns now." Down in engineering, Jake Morrison wrenched open an access panel with his bare hands. Sparks flew as he bypassed 3 fried circuits, his fingers moving faster than the ship's damage diagnostics could track. "You'll get your power when I damn well." He jammed 2 wires together. "Give it to you." The Defiance's starboard railguns hummed to life, just as the Kriegs cruiser moved into firing position. "Fire," Blake ordered. The railguns discharged with a sound like tearing metal. 6 tungsten slugs crossed the distance in a blink. 3 punched clean through the Kriegs ship's bridge. The remaining slugs detonated its primary reactor in a fireball that lit up Jupiter's clouds. On the Compliance, Vraxis's central heart skipped a beat. They're winning," he breathed. The Vorak engineer's frills stood straight up in alarm. "This violates every tactical doctrine. No species fights like this. No species can." Meanwhile, aboard the Kriegs flagship, the warlord slammed his chitinous fists against his command throne. "Target that human vessel, all batteries. I want them." "Warlord," screeched a subordinate. "The human ship. It is changing course directly toward us." Blake's voice crackled across the Defiance's intercom. "All hands brace for impact." He turned to his helmsman. "Take us right down their throats." The Defiance angled its battered hull toward the Kriegs flagship and accelerated. Warning klaxons blared as the distance closed. "Faye meters, Faye, Captain. Their point defenses." Cho began. "Won't matter," Blake said, his eyes locked on the view screen. "Morrison, you ready?" Down in engineering, Morrison wiped blood from a gash on his forehead and grinned. "Born ready." He slammed his palm onto a large red button marked Emergency Override. The Defiance's entire power grid re-rotated in an instant. Every non-essential system shut down as all available energy flooded to the forward armor plating. The ship's nose glowed white, hot as it plowed straight through the Kriegs flagship's shields like a bullet through wet paper. Metal screamed as the Defiance carved a kilometer-long gash along the Kriegs vessel's spine. Atmosphere vented in great plumes as the flagship's structural integrity failed. Secondary explosions rippled down its length. Blake's ship emerged from the other side trailing debris, its hull scorched but intact. Behind them, the Kriegs flagship split in 2, its dying reactors casting an eerie blue glow across the wreckage. Silence fell across the battlefield. The remaining Kriegs ships hung motionless for 3 heartbeats, then turned and fled. On the Defiance's bridge, Ensign Cho let out a shaky breath. "That shouldn't have worked." Blake leaned back in his chair, the ghost of a smile on his face. "That is why they call them violations, Ensign." Back on the Compliance, Vraxis stared at the battle logs scrolling across his screen. The data made no sense, human reaction times exceeding galactic averages by Faye manual system, overrides outperforming automated protocols, ships operating at Faye of rated capacity. His communicator chimed. It was Commander Hayes from the watchtower. "Enjoy the show, Inspector." Her voice was all smug satisfaction. Vraxis's mandibles worked soundlessly for a moment before he found his voice. This violates every—" "Damn right it does," Hayes interrupted. "Welcome to human space." In engineering, Morrison kicked a sparking console. It immediately stabilized. He spat on the deck and grinned at the horrified Vorak engineer watching through the comlink. "Told you we fear Reliance more." The Vorak's frills quivered. But your ship should be dead. You have no working AI. Half your systems are offline. Your Morrison patted the smoking console like it was a beloved pet. Son, let me tell you about something we call redundancy. He winked. And duct tape. As the last Crick ships vanished into jump space, Blake stood and stretched. All right, people. Let's get this tub patched up, Morrison. How bad is it? The chief engineer's laughter crackled over the comm. Oh, we're venting atmosphere in 6 places. The port thrusters are held together with hope, and I'm pretty sure the mess hall is on fire. A pause. We'll be ready for round 2 in 20. Blake nodded. Make it 15. On the compliance's bridge, Vraxis finally closed his gaping mouth. His hands moved automatically to log another violation, then stopped. Slowly, deliberately, he deleted the entire report. Perhaps, he thought as he watched the battered human ships begin emergency repairs, some violations were worth studying. The last Crick's raider spun wildly, its engines sputtering plasma as it limped toward the jump point. The USN Defiance hung in the void, her hull scorched and 3 decks venting atmosphere, but her railguns still tracking the retreating enemy. Inside the GFS compliance, High Inspector Vraxis gripped the observation rail with all 4 hands. His exoskeleton flushed a sickly grey, the Zenthari equivalent of shock. Impossible, he whispered. His voice crackled over the comms to the human ships. Your vessels sustained direct hits from plasma lances. By all galactic standards, your power cores should have blown sky high. Chief Engineer Jake Morrison cut in, his face streaked with soot on the Defiance's bridge feed. He coughed, then grinned. Yeah, well, we don't put all our eggs in one basket, or any baskets, really. Behind him, a crewman yanked a smoking panel open and dumped a fire extinguisher into the wiring. Vraxis turned to his Vorak assistant, whose frills were clamped tight against his skull. Run diagnostics. How many human systems failed during that engagement? The Vorak's claws trembled over the holographic display. All of them, High Inspector, and yet none of them. On the Defiance, Captain Ryan Blake unbuckled from his command chair, his uniform sleeve torn at the shoulder. See, Federation tech relies on centralized AI to distribute damage control. One hit to your core, and your whole ship goes dark. He tapped his temple. We've got 12 redundant systems, all dumb as rocks, and every damn one of them thinks it is in charge. A Zeperian inspector floated forward, her bioluminescent stripes pulsing in agitation. But the inefficiency, the wasted energy, Commander Lisa Hayes chuckled from the watchtower's feed. Funny thing about waste, when a Crick's boarding party cuts your main power, and your backup kicks in because some ensign forgot to disable the manual switch. You call it a happy accident. Morrison finished, slapping a fist into his palm. Vraxis scrolled through the battle logs, his stomach's churning. Human ships had taken hits that would have crippled any Federation vessel, but where a standard warship would have frozen, waiting for its AI to reroute, the human crews had moved. They'd patched leaks with their hands, rerouted power through jury, rigged cables, and stars forgive him, aimed their guns by looking out the window. One log entry made his carapace itch. Quezon Defiance, Deck Fay atmospheric containment lost. Crew response, sealed bulkhead with emergency weld and repressurized via auxiliary tanks before primary system flagged the breach. Your protocols, Vraxis trailed off, are more what you'd call guidelines, Blake said, winking. A chime sounded from the compliance's comms. The Galactic Council's emblem flashed, a priority summons. Vraxis hesitated, then opened the channel. High Inspector, came the clipped tones of Councillor Draxus. We've reviewed the live feed of your assessment. The Crick's attack was unforeseen, but the human's performance. A pause. Their so-called violations appear to have saved your vessel. Vraxis's mandibles clicked. Councillor, their methods are currently the only reason you're not a Crick's prisoner, Draxus interrupted. The Council is amending Code HFY effective immediately. Human manual overrides are to be classified as alternative compliance measures. Morrison whooped so loud the audio feed distorted. Hear that, boys? We're alternative. Hayes leaned into her feed, her smile razor sharp. So High Inspector still think we're reckless. Varaxis watched the Defiance's crew high, fiving through the sparks. Watched a human engineer drink straight from a coolant line. Watched Captain Blake casually flip a switch labeled, "Do not touch seriously." Guys, he exhaled, his exoskeleton fading to a resigned blue. I think the Federation has much to learn. Blake raised an imaginary glass. First lesson, when everything fails, improvise. Outside, the Defiance's thrusters flared, manually, of course. As she turned toward home, the GFS Compliance hung in high Earth orbit, its sleek organic curves now marred by plasma burns and emergency patches inside the observation deck. High Inspector Vraxis stared at the battle logs scrolling across the holographic display. His four hands trembled slightly as he replayed the engagement for the 12th time. Impossible, he muttered, mandibles clicking. Every tactical model predicted your destruction. Captain Ryan Blake leaned against the bulkhead, his uniform singed at the shoulders. Behind him, the USN Defiance drifted in dry dock, her hull pockmarked with craters, but her engines still humming. Your models assumed we'd fight like you, he said, tossing a data chip onto the console. We don't. The chip projected a cascade of schematics, human warships with manual fire control, analog backups, and crews trained to operate blind. Varaxis watched as the Defiance's gunners manually calculated trajectories during the battle, their hands flying across physical interfaces, while Federation AI stalled processing the chaos. You built your systems to fail, Varaxis said, his voice hollow. Commander Lisa Hayes smirked, her arms crossed. We built them to adapt. Your tech relies on perfect conditions. Ours thrives in the opposite. She tapped the display, freezing the moment the Defiance rammed the Crick's flagship. See that? Your AIs would have vetoed that maneuver as suicidal. Our helmsman did it because he knew their reactor was overheating. A chime sounded as the Galactic Council's emblem flickered to life above the console. The holographic face of Grand Overseer Ulix materialized, her feathery crest twitching in agitation. High Inspector, your preliminary report has caused unrest. Several member species are demanding clarification. Vraxis straightened. Clarification is unnecessary. The humans' so-called violations are, he hesitated, mandibles grinding, strategic advantages we failed to recognize. Ulix's crest flattened. Explain. Chief Engineer Jake Morrison shouldered past Blake, wiping grease from his hands onto his already stained jumpsuit. It is simple. You guys treat war like a math problem. Clean inputs, predictable outputs. He grabbed the display, zooming in on a human gunner manually overriding a targeting system mid-volley. But war's messy. Our tech lets us embrace the mess. Silence hung in the observation deck. Outside, a swarm of Federation repair drones buzzed around the Compliance, their movements precise and algorithmic. Beyond them, human engineers in jury, rigged exosuits welded hull plates with handheld torches, shouting corrections to each other over open comms. Ulix finally spoke, her voice quieter. The Council has reviewed the battle data. Your methods have merit. She paused, as if the words physically pained her. We would request human advisors to assist in revising Galactic Standard Code HFY. Blake exchanged glances with Hayes. Advisors, huh? Last week we were non-compliant. Varaxis exhaled through his respiratory vents, a sound like steam escaping. You forced us to reconsider our definitions. He gestured to the viewport, where Earth's defense grid pulsed, a patchwork of old satellites, retrofitted platforms and weapons that shouldn't have worked together. Your entire civilization is a violation, and yet it functions. Hayes grinned. Welcome to the party, Inspector. As the Compliance prepared to depart, Morrison lingered near the airlock, watching Federation technicians fumble with a human-made repair kit. One dropped a magnetic wrench, cursing as it floated away. Morrison snagged it mid-air and tossed it back. "Here is a free lesson," he said. "Tools are meant to be held, not talked to." The technician stared at the wrench, then at his own drone-assisted toolkit. Slowly, he switched off the auto-return function and gripped the wrench himself. A week later, as the Defiance patched her last hull breach, Blake stood on the bridge, watching the updated Federation codes scroll across the main screen. Manual overrides. Analog backups, human-designed redundancy protocols. Hayes joined him, sipping from a cracked coffee mug. "Think they'll stick to it?" Blake chuckled. "Doubt it. But next time they call us primitive," he nodded to the tactical display, where the compliance's revised schematics now included a handwritten note in the margins. "When in doubt, hit it." Hayes raised her mug. "Violation accepted." Outside, Earth's defense grid hummed, every system offline, every gun still armed.